I will have to work through whatever baggage I have that makes me so afraid of being judged. I felt like if I had a buzz cut, I would be completely free to play with femininity. I've never spoken about this, by the way, so I'm being very vulnerable right now. My way of rebelling against toxic shame was cutting all my hair off, I guess. Hi friends, my name is Rowan. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're gay and you've been here before. So I shaved my head, which is old news because I did it about 4 months ago, but I want to talk about it today because in a few weeks when this color grows out, I will be cutting it off and growing out my hair once again. And after maintaining the buzz cut for several months, I have some reflections, some insights I want to share with you because A, it is my personal mission to convince as many people as possible to try shaving their heads at least once. And B, while this is not my first experience shaving my head, it has been the most liberating and the most rich in self-discovery by far. So grab a drink, maybe a little snack, and let's get into it. I have had a buzz cut 4 separate times in my life at this point. First in 2017, then in 2018, then again in 2020, and now this one in April of this year. So shaving my head is nothing new to me, right? It's already something I'm very comfortable with. But there was something distinctly different about my experience this time compared to all the others, and I think there are multiple reasons for that. For one, every time I shaved my head in the past, thoughts about how other people would perceive me were pretty much non-existent. Not because I didn't care what people thought of me. In fact, I cared almost to a pathological degree back then. But the reason why it didn't occur to me to think about other people's perceptions of my appearance in that way was that I was extremely reclusive. To put it bluntly, I was deeply unwell and barely left my house, which was definitely related to how much fear and anxiety I had around how people perceived me. But that's a can of worms for a whole other video. My point is, I didn't have to think about how people would look at me if I had a buzz cut because nobody was seeing me. Except online, where all the spaces I frequented were very queer, so there was no fear of judgment there. This time was very different, however, because now I'm employed and I have a very public-facing job where I interact with tons of strangers every day, as well as coworkers who I like and I care what they think of me. And that's actually one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and shave my head again. I wanted to challenge my anxiety about other people's perceptions of me. In my head, I was almost sort of forcing myself to confront these fears and anxieties because I guess I sort of expected that some people would be openly judgmental and weird about it, which was not at all what ended up happening, and we'll get to that. Because something I've learned about myself is that I'm not very good at predicting how people are going to treat me. I tend to expect the worst, even when the worst is like highly unrealistic. All that to say, my thought process was basically, if I do this thing and I invite judgment and negative opinions to come my way, I will have to work through whatever baggage I have that makes me so afraid of being judged. Interestingly, what happened instead was completely painless, but equally healing. In all the time since I shaved my head back in April, not only have I had 0 negative interactions about it, I've gotten more compliments on my hair than ever before, and it's sparked countless positive interactions with kind and curious strangers. I can't tell you how many older ladies have told me that they love my hair and they wish they could do it too, and I tell every single one of them that they can and should, but I digress. What I'm getting at here is I've learned through this experience that my fears were irrational. At an early age, I learned to expect people to look at me like I'm a freak. And in my adulthood, I've built up enough courage to express myself the way I want to, even if it means being treated like a freak, and ultimately found that nobody actually thinks of me that way. I mean, if they do, I don't know about it, so it's none of my business. But the way I'm received by people, the vast majority of the time in terms of my appearance, is with kindness and warmth and admiration. People admire bold and unique self-expression. I mean, not everyone, surely, but I think the people that don't are in the minority. I'm surprised to say my experience has been that kind people are the loudest. This experience has definitely made me braver, but not in the way I thought it would. It didn't require the difficulty and struggle I expected. In reality, all it took was letting other people prove to me that they can be kind. Wild concept for me personally. Another thing I've found really special and really liberating about this particular experience shaving my head is how it relates to gender expression. I started questioning and exploring my gender identity 10 years ago at this point, so playing around with gender expression is nothing new to me. I've gone through so many different phases with the way I express myself through clothes and makeup and my hair. And before I started toying with the idea of shaving my head again, I was in this phase where overtly feminine elements were kind of off the table, and I had been for a while. I was sort of unconsciously locked into this concept of balanced androgyny, which I have a whole tangent I could go on about how that's kind of an impossible thing to achieve because of the way our society views gender and expressions of gender, but I won't because it's off topic. So by the time I started thinking about shaving my head again, I was feeling quite limited and was really itching to play around again, particularly with femininity. It's no coincidence, I think, that was around the same time that my interest in drag was becoming a hyperfixation. Because there's no limitation in drag. There's a sense of total freedom that's inherent to drag, and that really appeals to me. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that a major factor in me wanting to shave my head again was my admiration for Miss Sasha Velour. I mean, a buzz cut is not the same as going completely bald, but it's close enough, and she was and is a huge inspiration to me. I felt like if I had a buzz cut, I would be completely free to play with femininity, because a haircut that's very much the opposite of traditionally feminine against a highly feminine outfit was enough juxtaposition for me to feel comfortable putting on femininity. And that definitely has been the case. I've turned looks in the past few months that I never would have attempted when I had longer hair, and I have had a lot of fun doing it. But the thing is, over the last few months, the sense of freedom I've found in my self-expression while I've had a buzz cut has become noticeably less conditional. I don't feel like I have to have a buzz cut to dress in certain ways. The way I approach fashion now doesn't really feel like it has much to do with gender at all. I just want to wear what I feel inspired to wear. I mean, gender isn't completely absent from the equation. I think it will always be there, given how obsessed our world is with putting everything into these two gender boxes. I mean, that shit's ingrained deep in our collective consciousness, but again, I digress. I have loved having a buzz cut, and I will certainly have many more throughout my life. But I'm ready to have hair again, and I no longer feel like my hair will be a limitation when it comes to how I express myself. If anything, I'm at a point where I feel like no matter what I wear, I'm doing drag. I'm never dressing in accordance with my gender because my gender is, well, basically non-existent. I don't really feel like I have any internal sense of gender, and that is so liberating. Even on those occasions when I hear that little voice in the back of my head questioning whether something's androgynous enough or too feminine for me, my response is always just, fuck it, it's drag. There are no rules in drag. A couple months ago, I identified a pattern I'd been engaging in for quite a while, a couple years in fact, without knowing I was doing it. I realized that I was unconsciously striving to be as normal as possible. I tried not to draw any attention to myself. I grew my hair long for the first time in 10 years and kept it my natural color. I dressed in more subdued ways, and that's only on the physical level. It really bled into everything. The way I thought, the way I carried myself, the way I spoke, what I spoke about versus what I kept quiet about. Despite the fact that for years I was unafraid to be recognized as queer, I somehow ended up with this sick satisfaction with the fact that nobody could look at me and clock me as queer. I've never spoken about this, by the way, so I'm being very vulnerable right now. And in addition to that sense of satisfaction, or rather entwined with it, was this sense of shame around all the ways I used to express myself that were noticeably queer. One of which being, you guessed it, shaving my head. So I'm realizing this and I'm thinking, is that why it's taken so long for me to want to shave my head again? And it was, because for a while, anytime I would look back at pictures of myself with a buzz cut from years ago, I would kind of cringe. I don't know how I ended up here. I mean, I That's a lie, I do. This whole pattern started festering around the time I was stepping out of my bubble for the first time in a very, very long time. I was going from agoraphobic shut-in who was barely a part of the world I was living in and therefore didn't need to think about how other people perceived me, to a functioning human who very much wanted to be a part of the world and wanted to be accepted and liked. And suddenly, the ways I was used to expressing myself didn't feel safe anymore. Keep in mind, this was all happening on a completely subconscious level. You know, it's not like I was actively thinking,
I want to start living my life. Guess I need to be normal now.
But looking back on it, it's pretty clear that's exactly what was going on. I just wasn't aware of it. Once I did become consciously aware of that pattern, I was like, oh no, this will not do. Because objectively, I don't agree with that shame. I don't identify with it. I love being queer. I love the unique ways that I experience and express my queerness, and I'm proud to be queer. I was alarmed and disturbed to realize that there was such a significant chunk of time where I wasn't embodying that, but I was thankful and relieved to realize that I'd started to find my way out of that shame before I even recognized I was in it. Like, by the time I noticed it, I'd already shaved my head. And that's why I don't think of it as just a haircut. It was not just an outward change to my appearance. It was an act of rebellion, as cheesy as that sounds. My way of rebelling against toxic shame was cutting all my hair off, I guess. When I really think about it, when I look at every part of this experience, what I see underlying it all is freedom. I'm really glad I decided to shave my head again because there was so much more I could get out of it at this time in my life than I could 4 years ago. Now, before I go, I just want to give you a little rapid fire list of reasons why you too should shave your head in case you're not yet convinced. Number 1, it takes 0 time to style your hair. I mean literally 0. You know what? That's a good enough reason by itself. My work here is done. See ya! Just kidding. I have 4 more. Number 2, you'll get compliments from strangers literally everywhere you go. This will probably vary by location, so don't take my word for it, but it has been my experience, so I'm putting it out there. Number 3, being outside in the summer heat is less soul-crushing when you don't have any hair. Number 4, you can dye your hair fun colors every month without damage because you can just shave it off and start from scratch every time. And number 5, if you buy your own clippers and shave your head at home, you will save so much money not getting haircuts at a salon. You can thank me later. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you do shave your head, be sure to come back and leave a comment to let me know. And if you're interested in seeing a video where I document the process of growing out my buzz cut, let me know that too, because that also might be something I want to do. All right, thank you so much for being here. I really hope you stick around, and until next time, bye!